Hi. Okay, so the space is a bit different than what I had on the last video. So we've moved into this new house that we bought from Lahti, and I thought that I'd start my first project while living in here. I still don't have a lot of equipment, more or less the same that I had on the first video, so it's rather simple things. I will be using circular saw, orbital sander, and then a drill, and then just some measuring tools and something like that. But yeah, I will be trying to make these deck chairs since we have this small deck on the back of our house, which we can access from the sauna, the showers. So it'd be nice to get some chairs there so we could go during the sauna to chill or cool down there, or after sauna go there and have a drink or something. So yeah, so I bought these pressure treated pines. These are for decking, so they will work nicely on the exterior chairs since they will be exposed to the weather, rain, and such. Yeah, it makes this rather simple, so I don't have to do any planing or anything like that on the lumber either. I think now we need to get started, start cutting the correct pieces, and then start putting them together. To begin with, I started by cutting down the four legs, which I measured at 55 centimeters from these 2x4s. Once I had cut all four legs, I moved on to cutting the side pieces from these 2x6s, and I measured these at 70 centimeters, and to make the cuts a bit easier, I used a speed square and a clamp to get a straight edge. After I had cut all 6 side pieces for one chair, I started assembling them, so putting 3 of the 2x6s on each side and putting them in between the 2x4s. And to make the assembly a bit easier, I got these clamps so I could clamp down the pieces before drilling and screwing them down. And for spacing the side pieces, I used this scrap piece of wood that was around 2 centimeters thick. And before putting in the screws, I did make some pilot holes to avoid any splitting on the wood, and I did use glue on the first chair on the side pieces, but after that I thought that the glue isn't probably necessary, but I think you can go either way, however you want. But just to bear in mind that if you do use glue that is water resistant. And this is how the side pieces will look after the assembly. And for the armrest, I used a 2x4, which I attached on top of the side pieces, and I took the measurements straight out of the side pieces. And then again, by using the clamp and the speed square, I cut down the armrest with the circular saw. And as you may have noticed already, I don't have that much things at the new workshop, so the ergonomics for making the cuts isn't the best either. But after cutting both of the armrests, I drilled down again some pilot holes and then screwed the armrests down to the side pieces. Once I had both of these side pieces assembled, I started measuring how wide the seat would be. And to mention that the design of the chairs is more or less from Anna White's plans of these chairs, but I did do some minor changes, mostly on the measurements, since hers were on inches and I had to transfer mine to centimeters, and while I did that I also made some minor adjustments on those as well. But I ended up for the seat being 62.5 centimeters wide, and after that I started cutting down the spacers to the front of the chair and then to the back, as well as the backrest pieces for the chair. So with the help of some clamps I started assembling the chair, so I put down the first spacers to the front and back to get it in form. Once I had the front and back spacers in their place, I did check that everything is square and then drilled again some pilot holes and screwed down the first pieces. And after that I just needed to space out the next spacers and then screw them in place. And to adjust the seat height, I couldn't put two full-size 2x6s on the front to be the spacers. So I ended up splitting one in half, or not in half, taking a more or less 2 centimeter piece out from the middle, and by doing that I got spacers for both chairs, so I could use one piece for the first chair and then the next piece for the second. And here on the side you can already see some of the pieces for the second chair, which I had been cutting down as I went along with the first chair as well. But if you've made it this far, I would really appreciate if you'd give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. And to finish the back of the seat, just like with the side pieces, I cut down a 2x4 to fit in between the two side pieces, and then since it was too thick for the back, I had to trim off a bit from the 2x4 so it would be the correct width. Once I had it fit correctly, then it was just a matter of drilling down some holes and screwing it down to the backrest of the chair. And I did find it a bit wobbly after putting down 3 screws to the back of the seat, so I did end up putting 2 screws to each of the side, so it was attached to the armrests as well. And now that the back of the chair was done, I needed to make some pieces that I could attach these actual seats to. So I split a 2x4 in half and then screwed it down to the side pieces. And then moved on cutting the pieces for the seats from the 2x6s. And again, I'm using the scrap piece of wood as a spacer, but since the last gap ended up being quite small compared to the others, I did move all the pieces slightly after the spacing just to make it symmetrical. And after the spacing was done, I just screwed down each of the boards to the piece that I had attached underneath them earlier. And now it was time to test out if the seat would hold my weight, so went on and did some jumps on my butt to test it out. And all was good at the end. And now as the first chair was done, it was just a matter of repeating and doing the second one. And as I ended up with some scrap wood and actually not using all the 2x4s that I had bought, I thought that okay, from the scrap pieces I could make a small table for us for the back as well. And again, to begin with, I cut down the 2x4s for the legs, and after that I split 2x4s in half and made this frame which I attached the legs to.
And as you could see, the table was a bit wobbly, but I thought that after putting the top pieces on, it would make it a bit more rigid. And again, like with the chairs, with some screws, I attached the top pieces to the foam that I had made. But the table was still a bit wobbly, so then I thought, since I had a pile of these 2x6s, I made this small square that I then attached to the middle section of the chairs to make it a bit more rigid, and that at the end helped it out a bit. And here you have it, the finished table as well. And now it was time to do some sanding, but since the wood was pre-finished and milled, I only had to sand down some of the edges from the cuts that I had made, and that wasn't too bad of a job. I still need to oil down the chairs, but I think that I will wait a couple of weeks with that since the nights and evenings are still a bit cold in Finland, so I'll wait out for the weather to get a bit more warm and then I can oil the chairs as well as the decks at the same time. I was thinking about making some cushions on the seats, but now that we've used them for a few times already, we kind of realized that maybe we don't need those. The pillows at the back are just enough, and that's completely fine. And here you have the chairs at the back deck at our house, just behind the sauna. And as you saw, they are quite easy to build and doable with quite limited tools, so that's really nice, and I'm quite happy how they turned out to be at the end. But yeah, thanks for watching and see you on the next one. Bye.